I guess the other thing as a coach is don't be afraid to fail. So, some of those things that I might have picked up and thought was a good idea at the time when I'm doing a bit of research, then put it out on the park. And then, reevaluating at the end of it and going, that really didn't go the way I wanted to, or the goals that I'd set when I first put it together. So, yeah, don't be afraid to reevaluate yourself, and don't be afraid to fail.
Hi, and welcome back to the next episode of The Journey of a Grassroots Rugby Coach. In today's episode, I'm talking to Nick Coombs. Nick Coombs is the head coach and current director of the Longhorns Rugby Academy, which we talk about during the interview. He's also done a lot of stuff around Bowral in regional New South Wales. And he's coached everything from girls sevens all the way through to his local club side. He's done some work with New South Wales Gen Blue and a few other things that we talk about. You'll notice during this recording that I actually move out of camera shot. I had a dog in the room and the old fella needed to go outside. So that's why I disappeared. There was nothing sinister going on. I just had to let the dog out. So you'll see that at some point. But thanks for listening. Hope you get something out of this. Yeah. So just for the listeners, mate, just a quick little, 30 seconds on who you are, what you do, like what grassroots stuff you do. You can also give your coaching hustle a shout out, mate. That's not a problem at all.
Yep.
So
my name's Nick Coombs. I'm based in the Bowral area, New South Wales, which is sort of in the Illawarra catchment. Very much involved with the local Bowral Rugby Club as a player since about 91. Finished off playing 2008, and then sort of immediately jumped into coaching and helping sort of the first grade forwards. Really enjoyed it. I mean, obviously I couldn't play anymore, so I wanted to give back into the game. But realised pretty quickly how different it is from being a player and, really, with all the blokes around me, just turning up to training and coaching and what have you, importing the knowledge and whatever. That was a real sort of difficult, well, not a difficult transition, but, I realised in myself that I needed to go and do something. So I guess over the course of the last number of years, I've been mainly coaching juniors in schools as well as the club, and then through the schools pathway, coaching to the ISA schoolboys under 18s for a number of years, and then the last couple of years within the Illawarra region. So
nice. So you've probably sort of got the first point covered a little bit, but why did you get into coaching?
As a avid lover of the game since I was really young, I figured that without playing anymore, the ability to give out and use my players' knowledge and sort of team knowledge and game knowledge back to the players was great. And obviously, as a rugby club does, it keeps you all engaged with your mates, and you can go out and have a beer and a chat and watch the games, and it was basically a natural extension of that, just to continue in with the game, and along the way, helping the game along and basically trying to, keep those young guys coming in and enjoying it and playing, and obviously being a bit more competitive as they grow up. That was really a draw card for me as a coach. I suppose I've been lucky enough to have some decent coaches in grade throughout my time. So, both locally, a bloke by the name of Al Tyson, years ago, coached at Randwick and then moved his family down to Bowral and was coached by him. And, he was an inspiring guy, an inspiring coach, and I'd probably regard him as my second dad. And he obviously gives me information as a coach and what to do. So, seeing a guy like that enjoying it as well, that's something that really I wanted to do and be involved with and continue with as a coach, for sure.
Yeah, nice. And I think it's sort of a path that most coaches take, is that natural progression from playing to coaching, and just that giving back to the game that we all tend to love doing. So with regards to your coaching, mate, what's one of the biggest heartbreaks or disappointments you've had as a coach?
As a coach, look, I guess being involved with juniors, I mean, not so much as a team, but I guess some of the coaches around, they're not focused on the kids themselves. They're actually focusing on themselves, and it's all about the W. So, unfortunately, I guess that's where I am in grassroots is trying to obviously maintain that level of fun for the kids, for their development. And my own sort of philosophy sort of is based around the no man left behind scenario. So you might have a couple of kids that have never played the game before, and they've just turned up, and you have a couple of kids that are very decent players that have actually put in a lot of time. So trying to assist that, but I guess it's from not in a game sense, but more from what I sort of see within grassroots that I suppose annoys me a fair bit.
Yeah, and I think it's huge that the coaches are probably doing it, like you said, for the wrong reasons, because they're more results driven.
Yeah.
And I think probably a lot of coaches start out that way, and the good ones tend not to worry too much about the W as they progress through. Which is, I was probably pretty results driven when I started. Then, like you said, you soon find out that, you've got this guy here that's never played before, or, you've got, when I first started coaching, I had a guy turn up with his 2 young sons, and all he ever wanted to do was play rugby with his boys. And it was just like, well, we're not getting a win out of this, but we're going to get something out of this, And both boys turned out to be great rugby players. I think their dad played 10 minutes with them and busted his shoulder, but he was happy, and you just go, well, the results aren't always the best. Well, they are. It's better than losing, but when you focus on the other stuff.
That comes afterwards. I think if you stamp the boy or girl as a rugby player for long term, that's where we want to go to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yourself as a coach, any of the new coaches out there, it's kind of put a bit of a tattoo on yourself. That's what I want to do, and this is what I want to be, longer term.
Yeah, and I remember when I first stepped back from coaching in a senior team, and I took an under-16 team, and I got all the parents in on the first night, and I said to them, I don't care whether we win or lose. And they all sort of looked at me, and I went, I'm here to make your son the best player that he can be. And if that means we win, we win. If it means we don't, it doesn't matter. And you could see them all just go, oh. But at the end of the year, like, we made the semi-finals. We actually had a good group of boys, and I think 80% of them are still playing the game. That's a win.
Yeah.
And some of them have gone on, one of the boys went on to play Rebels under 19s and stuff like that. And they're all just still good. They're good humans.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, I suppose that probably puts on to one of the positives is that there's a number of guys that I've coached sort of from real young, under 7s and under 8s and what have you. And the way our region is, or our sort of town, we have 2 major rugby schools, and invariably they sort of go from primary and they take a pick as to which school they're going to go to. So invariably sort of half and half split. And this year, once all of those guys sort of left year 12 last year and had a bit of a season internally between each of the colleges playing each other, they've all got on and put the band together, and they're now playing for our local club. 90% of those kids that were under eights way back when are now sort of playing for our club. Some of them playing first grade, and some of them playing, local representative for Illawarra. So that's just unreal. I think those guys can stick with each other and keep with each other in these times, and effectively go and want to play again for their local club that they all started with.
Yeah, and you get those kids. They just want to play footy with their mates.
Mm.
Whether that's first grade or third grade, they just go, mate, I just want to play with my mates. And that's some good insight there, mate. What about some of the lessons that you learn as a coach? Try and think back to, because for me, looking back now, I would have hated to have been coached by me when I was in my first year of coaching. It was all corner drills and straight line passing, and if you dropped a ball, you're doing all that old school shit that we used to do. Compared to what what's the normal practice now. So what's some of the lessons that you've taken out that you can share with the people out there, and maybe give them some ideas around the coaching side of it?
Yeah. As I sort of said at the beginning, as transitioning from a player to a coach, you've kind of learned fairly quickly that you're a little bit out of depth, and then you kind of go to those places where you're doing your line drills and what have you. But one of the major things I learned, and it was assisted by going through the accreditation courses, that you focus on a few different things throughout those courses, and you talk to other coaches as well, working out what works for them in their scenario, and what you can take back to your club or team. And I suppose one of the things that I used to do often was talk too much. I'd be talking, and the guys, I wouldn't notice it at the time, but the guys were probably just about on their second yawn, and then the drill would take place. So I guess that was one of the first sort of little things that I learned to get out of my my repertoire. The other thing is actually looking at other sports, and looking, when you're actually coming up with a challenge in terms of your game on your Saturday, and you want to work for it for the following Saturday. Don't be afraid to actually look at other sports. Your hockey, your soccer. They've all got adaptable drills that you can actually take to the guys and the girls, as well as being variable, and being a little bit thoughtful as to this might be a little bit of fun, and implement that. I guess the other thing as a coach is don't be afraid to fail. So some of those things that I might have picked up and thought was a good idea at the time when I'm doing a bit of research, then put it out on the park, and then reevaluating at the end of it and going, that really didn't go the way I wanted to, or the goals that I'd set when I first put it together. So yeah, don't be afraid to reevaluate yourself, and don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to come back to I'll say questioning, but I was very much like you, as talk way too much, and it's something that I still struggle with now, because I think us as coaches don't like the silence. Or us as humans, if there's silence, someone's got to say something.
Yep.
So how did you bring that in through your questioning? Like, what you've done, your skill, and then you might have 20 seconds, and then you go, well, what questions do I ask here? Or do you just let them work that out themselves? Which way do you sort of go there, mate?
Yeah, well, I found, you know, like if I was just a general scenario drill, I was talking for, you know, 3 to 4 minutes, but, you know, there was certainly no need to do that. Then during the drill, I'd probably stop it too many times, you know, like after 5 minutes or whatever, just because a bit of silence there, or I might have got a feeling that the boys, you know, might not have been into what we were trying to do. So I'd probably pull it back and have a chat. This is why we're trying to do this, and then I'd go again. But I found that, you know, the minimal that you can talk at the beginning of a drill or a game, the better, so that the ball's in the hands, because we find that the guys actually learn a lot more by doing, and then have the ability to let them play for it, have the ability to let them go, and then ask them at the end, you know, get the feedback from them. You know, how do you think this actually went, and how do you think, you know, what we were trying to achieve, was it achieved? If not, do you want to go again? Do you want to have a crack at, you know, or any comments from the guys or girls in the group? Yeah, so by doing, that's where you have the most effect, I believe. And, you know.
And I found what helped me with it was when I got involved in some of the junior rep stuff. They're on a time. You've got 5 minutes to do that exercise. So if you spend 3 minutes explaining to them what you want to do, you might as well not do the drill. So you've got to, like you said, you've got to go in and go, guys, this is what we're going to do. Bang, bang, bang. Off, go. And correct on the run. Like you might go, Nick, I just need you to keep your hands up, mate. Or, you know, instead of stopping everyone. And that was something that really, because of the way the program was, there was that time pressure to get everything. And we had, it's usually the S&C guy, he's keeping time. So you're not worried about this, and he'll go, you've got 2 minutes left in this. So, oh shit, do I now stop and have a chat to him, or do I let it? So yeah, it's a skill that we probably don't work enough on as coaches. And like you said, the questioning around the skill itself, of course, and everyone I've spoken to, the first thing you always say to them, what can we always improve on? The first thing that comes out of their mouth is, oh, our comms.
Yeah.
Mate, what do you mean? What do you mean by comms? Oh, talking. No, I don't want you to talk. I want you to communicate.
Yep.
You know, and yeah, so having those, like you said, having those questions and sucking the answers out of them.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, like you said, with the rep stuff, you know, like you do have such a finite amount of time, and invariably you don't know these guys. So I was lucky enough last year to do some New South Wales Gen under 18s, and you know, on the first day of the first session, you meet the guys and you're into it straight away. So, you know, you've got to get that down pat pretty quickly, because you haven't had the time to know the guys like you would a normal team season. You know, so it's a lot harder. But as you go within a full team sort of setup, you've got that effective time to know what makes the guys tick. You know, what works for them, what doesn't, and you can drill down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite well.
Yeah, and I found that this year I changed senior clubs this year, and being there, and the head coach would say, "Oh, that was good, but so and so wasn't. You know, I know he's got more in him than that. Like,
yep.
But to me, I'm going, oh, he did it really well." And the coach goes, "No, I know he's better than that. He's taken the piss." Because we don't know, like you said, didn't know these guys. Where now it's like, mate, you can do better. You can do better than that.
Yeah.
So getting to know the players as well is critical in that, especially around that communication stuff as well. Yeah, and it was interesting you said there about that. Don't be scared to fail around your drills, or how do you, when you talk about that, do you actually say to the players, guys, we're going to do something new tonight. I don't know whether it's going to work or it's not going to work, but let's just give it a crack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the space that it's normally in. Yeah, exactly that. Having an ability to sort of be wide and varied with what we do, and evaluating afterwards, and just effectively saying, well, okay. I mean, as a coach, write down some notes and say, okay, well, I could have improved it in this way, or that was just trash, and I'll kind of never do that again, because I just don't think what was in my mind was actually going to go out onto the park with those guys at that particular time. So
it looked completely different in my mind when I was thinking about this than how it worked.
Yeah, it's the best idea I've ever had.
Yeah, and it was rubbish.
Crap.
And it was rubbish. Yeah, and I think too, that gives you a little bit of credibility with the voice. Like you go, guys, let's give this a crack. If it doesn't work, we'll shelve it. If it does work, we'll keep it. And it also allows them to make an error. Like you said, oh yeah, guys, it looked really good. It looked really good when I was drawing it up in my head, but now we've done it. Yeah, we're not achieving what we want to achieve.
No. And I think as a coach, you're learning every day. You're learning out there what's what you can use and what you can bin. So, and again, in our grassroots, we're not coaching the next Rebels or Waratahs or the Brumbies or Wallabies, but at some point in our careers, we might be coaching somebody that on any given day is going to be up there at the end. So like just being unafraid to work with them and try things is a good trait of a coach, I think, to have and instill, because we're at grassroots level.
Yeah. So there's something else that came out there that I want to touch on, and I know the area where you're from. Like it's bush footy, as I call it. It's not like there's a couple of clubs, like guys can't move it. Like in Melbourne, there's 8 to 10 clubs that a guy could go, I'm going to go and play over here, or I'm going to play over there, or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So you're going to get, a mixture of players who are potentially on that rep pathway. And then you get the guy that turns up and goes, he can't catch a cold in July, but he just wants to play footy with his mates.
Yep.
So, and I think this is it's not an issue, but it's something that every grassroots coach gets, is how do I keep this player engaged that's on that, rep pathway, can catch pass under pressure, thinking 3 phases ahead, blah, 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 as opposed to the guy that's just like, he's probably going to play rugby for 30 years. He's never going to play anything higher than 4th grade, but he just loves the game, and he loves the off-field stuff. But as an 8 or a 9 or a 10-year-old, how do we keep both ends of that spectrum engaged in that training session, if that makes sense?
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess as you are planning for a particular week or your setup of your team, you take into account your various levels of players, and you have to give you have to probably give a little bit more focus to those guys that are just at the beginning, probably there to make up the numbers. But the thing that I find most gratifying with those guys is that there is a point in time where the light switch just goes off, and you can actually see it in their eyes, and you can't wait for the game to either finish or get to half time, where you can actually give them a pat on the back and say, look, Johnny, you just really did exactly what you've been doing on the training paddock for a number of years, and I just want you to keep focusing on that. And you also see the guys around them galvanize around them, and in effect, that might have been a guy that wasn't getting the ball very often, but, you know, those guys start giving the ball because they know he can actually do something now. So, you know, I think, especially in kids, the light bulb moment and realizing that it comes off at different times or turns on at different times. So I think if you can give that focus to that individual in the team sense as much as you can to keep them and keep them going. But also the players that have actually been playing for quite a while, you know, they start to give that positive entity to that player as well. So they you know, galvanize around and help and assist. So, you know, they get what they're trying to achieve, and they're obviously just trying to get better as they go along. So they kind of, you know, continue on their pathway. So, yeah, I think that's probably where I sit with that. You know.
Yeah, and it's difficult, and I think some coaches really struggle with that. I mean, it's not going to be at every club. It's probably the you know, the smaller areas where there's only 1 or 2 clubs that you can play for. You know, how do we? Because you want to keep the guys, you want to keep the kids in the game.
Yep.
You know, because that young fella that you're talking about, you know, or that young girl or whatever, they're probably going to be the club president at some point, or they'll be, you know, that person that I can just go, mate, I need you to do this, and they'll, yep, and they go and they do it because they love the sport and they love, you know, the camaraderie and what it's about. So we've got to keep that in. But I think a lot of younger coaches find it difficult to keep the engagement. So it's really good. We've got some really good insight from some of the guys we've spoken about on how they do that. So that's awesome. How do you think, as coaches, we can improve the game at the grassroots? Because my thought is that if you look at like the AFL setup, everything's grassroots and then it pyramids up. Where I think in rugby, especially in Australia, it's the opposite.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no silver bullet for our country at the moment. You know, we as rugby blokes will probably always look to New Zealand and know how well that they've actually done it. And, you know, for the most part, you know, the borrowing of that information and attempting to work on it is a good thing. I think the focus that I've seen by the ARU in recent years is actually to resource coaches better and providing them content, you know, visually with their implementing of websites for drills and skills, and also I think more recently, I think this year, the implementation of the ARU partnership with Slow Coach that provides coaches with plans to do lessons for kids and you know, and for their teams. So if you haven't been on there, you know, the Rugby ARU portal has a link to it that you can sign up and get. I think it's eight weeks of programs and at various different age levels. So from under 12s, I think, and under 14s, under 16s, under 18s, and I think there's possibly a seniors one that's coming shortly.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing I've seen. The other thing is that certainly in my area that they've actually highlighted a number of coaches, and I was lucky enough myself to go through recently an educator program where, you know, our in history, development officers would be one guy, one region, 600 odd schools, 14 clubs, just impossible to get out to everybody. And, you know, they'd struggle to get a course on, or an accreditation course, whereas in multiple areas that they're attempting to grow the branches by involving people within the grassroots to facilitate a lot more of a footprint from that level. So and that's where we are at the moment. I think that we're probably benefiting a lot from, what the resources are from a coaching level, from that side of things, and the way that's delivered. And I guess we probably haven't done that, or the code itself in Australia hasn't done that for many years. So probably over the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen that develop. And I think realistically we're going to see that sort of, in a lot more competitive rugby, probably at the top end, if not this year, the next couple of years at least, because, there's probably a lot more people on the ground that have actually gone through that process.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. I think up until probably 3 or 4 years ago, we had an education system for coaches, but not a development system. So you'd go there on the Friday or the Saturday, and you'd do your 2 days, and you get your whistle and your bag of balls, and off you go, and that was it.
Yeah,
we'll see you in whenever you want to do the next accreditation or whatever, and people were just out coaching. And I don't know about you, but I do one of those courses, and after 2 days you walk out of there and you go, I probably really didn't learn anything, or what you have learned you've forgotten. Where now, like you said, there's all these resources now, and I think I have had a quick look at that slow coach stuff, and I think too, now with the way the world is with COVID and all these lockdowns and stuff, there's been a lot of like Zoom meet, like just people just hooking up and talking about coaching and how do we do things better, or because I think we don't educate the coaches enough on how to coach. This is what we want you to coach, but they don't how to coach it, which I think is something that we've lacked up until a couple of years ago, is that not the technical side of it. That's all there, but how do you keep kids engaged for 40 minutes, when it's 3 degrees and there's a blizzard, like all that type of stuff that you just get there. And the first time it happens to you, you go, shit, what do I do? I'm not prepared. I know what I want to do, but I've got, we don't get taught how to coach.
No. So I suppose just to expand a little bit too, I guess over the last number of years, since I started my own academy, that there are a number of academies around Australia that I'm seeing doing some fantastic work. Like yourself, Bully down in Victoria with Rugby Scrum Skills, and there's a number of guys around here that are actually sort of doing heavy lifting as well as working together, and building those relationships to support each other. And I think in years gone by they haven't been noticeable, but I think it's more a case of guys like us that are, as I say, doing a bit of heavy lifting and sort of saying, okay, well, I've seen a few things happen, and if we can actually work together and coordinate and support the franchises with what they're trying to do, as well as just being an extra resource. Like I've been lucky enough in New South Wales to engage me in the Illawarra more recently because because of COVID, unfortunately, staffing levels have been low. So, I was very, very happy to go out and do a number of things in primary schools and high schools, and and I can see that in this space that there are private academies that are actually going out there and doing a few things, during, be it school holidays or running permanent programs in the off season, or that sort of good stuff that actually is probably more engaging for players than ever was before in our game. So, and just hoping this just keeps going and allowing others to come into the environment as rugby coaches and to be able to put their own programs together. So,
no,
I think the footprint's increasing.
Yeah, it is, mate. And like you said, it's probably only been the last 3 or 4 years here that we've had that education or that development around the skill of actually coaching rather than, and when you do like the academy stuff and these education days or development days, you're not giving away IP. Like you're not giving away the tactics that you're going. I'm not going to, we're not going to run a session, and I'm not going to give you the tactics I'm going to run on Saturday against you. But let's work together and go. Well, how this guy's really struggling with this part of his game. How can I? What am I doing? What am I not seeing? What am I not telling him? What am I? Or can you just stand there for 5 minutes and am I talking too much? Am I, not, pick some things and just get someone to stand there and look at you and go, mate, you're talking too much. The kids don't understand, and people will pick it up that you don't even know that you're doing it.
Yeah, that's right. And they can take it back to their teams, or they might be a player that's trialled for a rep side and they haven't quite got there yet. So, it allows them to do outside their team environment that extra 1% to be able to focus. And then hopefully the following year comes along that they've taken on some of that detail and, they're actually pushing for sides. And obviously some of the sides are actually benefiting from that because they've gone through, a bit of a bespoke program that hasn't really been delivered much before. Yeah. In that context. Yeah. So I always say to the kids when they turn up that this is not your normal training session that you would have as your team. So you're actually here to, even though we're working in groups, you're actually here to learn a skill for yourself to take back to make you more confident within your team or within your rep side or to make a rep side.
Yeah, no, that's good to let the kids know that that's what it is. It's not a normal session. It's about developing you as that player and going back and helping your team, whatever that team may look like. So, that's really good. I also want to just flick back on, and this is interesting. I've had a few chats with a few people on this, and because we all do it. So that reflection we do after a session or after a game, and some of us spend way too much time on it than we probably should, and others probably not as much as we should. So what's your process after a session or after a game on that reflection of what we did well, what didn't we do, what have we got to work on, how can I improve myself, all that type of stuff? What's your process, mate?
Yeah, I suppose over the years, I've kind of watch a game and I'm always within a game in a sense, and probably just enjoying watching it from both sides, whether we make mistakes or what have you. The benefit of the last number of years is that I've been able to sort of take that a little bit further into the game. So when I'm, getting up to halftime, to be able to discuss with the guys what's going on, what I'm seeing, and using a team of coaches around me to assist me there. But with the benefit of video in a team environment, it is so good to be able to go back and be away from the normal sideline chatter and just, I suppose, enjoyment, which sort of clouds a bit of the physical analysis that sometimes as a coach you probably should be doing, if you get me. But being able to go back and watch a movie of the game and being able to sort of take snapshots out, when it comes to the physicalities of the game, or potential players, their passing, their ability to break the line, the ability to build up phases and defend properly, or what's working, what's not working. So I guess if you are able to get videos of your games, then that's a real good, that's a good thing to do. if it's not always possible, you know, trying to probably take it away from that sideline element. You know, I know myself sometimes, and some coaches will go down and stand behind the goalposts, so that they can, you know, analyse sort of where holes may be appearing, you know, and take notes from that end. I always like when I'm watching a Super Rugby game to actually go behind the post as well. I mean, I've got 5 kids, so I, you know, go to the cheap seats, but it's good as a coach to actually sit there behind and watch the running lines and you know, sometimes pick up something tactically yourself.
Yeah, mate, I love the cheap seats at the Super Rugby because, like you said, you've got that north-south view of what's happening, and you can, like you said, the running lines, or you'll see the hole just appear, and it gets bigger and bigger, and you just go, oh, there it is. And sometimes you don't see that in that side-on view. Yeah, that's a good point about trying to remove yourself from that sideline atmosphere. So the team I'm coaching with at the moment, there's 3 of us in the coaching team, and the head coach and the attack coach stand at either end, and I'm on the side, like I'm in the technical box or whatever, you know, that's what they call here, the coach's box. So I'm running this, you know, I'm doing the subs and watching the sideline stuff. And yeah, you find yourself getting caught in the emotion of the game. You know, like if it's a close game, you get caught in that emotion because you just can't it's really hard to take that step back. Well, you can see the guys at each end, some of them can actually just, like you said, just take that step back because they haven't got the crowd behind them, or they haven't got, you know, this guy over here talking, or the bloke at the, you know, stand at the barbecue giving you what for on the sideline. And yes, that's something that I've noticed this year is if you've got that opportunity just to take that step back and get that bigger picture of what's happening for the players.
I guess I'm always the guy that, you know, if I hear a little joke behind me, I'll probably turn around and, you know, maybe get involved with it and sort of have a bit of a laugh at the same time, because I enjoy the game so much. You know, like sometimes I should be focused a bit more on the game than enjoying it. But you know, why do you coach? Because you love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And every now and again, you'll get one of the other coaches go, "What just happened?" And you go, "I don't know. I was talking to the reserve halfback or something about, or someone behind me has, you know, said something." And yeah, so, but yeah, you're right. You do it because you love it, and it's getting that mix. So that's really good. You talked about that bit. So think back to those early days when we all start coaching. That first, you know, here's your whistle, here's your balls, off you go, see you later. What advice would you give yourself as that new coach, knowing what you know now?
Well, I'd probably say I wasn't given the whistle and the balls. You know, I was like, you know, Coombsy, you're going to take these guys now because your son's involved. So, you know, on your merry way. I was lucky enough because one of my best mates, and still one of my best mates, was actually there with me. So I said, you know, Mary Lou, you're going to come and coach with me, mate. And you know, we stuck with it for a few years. It's a good question, Bully. You know, you kind of think you'd always go to the, you know, get yourself accredited and, you know, make sure you pass on that information as much as you can to the kids. But
or what advice would you what advice would you give a new, like if one of the guys at your club said to you, "That's it, I'm hanging up the boots next year, I want to be a coach," what advice would you give them?
I suppose now I would actually say, you know, don't forget that I'm here, or don't forget that, you know, Steve Talbot's here, or, you know, Greg Bum, those guys. You know, don't forget to use us. And it probably goes back to my point earlier that, you know, you've got to understand that you've got an ability to fail. So don't be scared of it. So, use as many resources as you can out there, be it online, be it, just getting one of us to come down and run a couple of things for you, and, or you coming to us to say, okay, well, I'm having a bit of a struggle with this. So know that you're not alone. That would be, that's always the advice that I give to some of these young coaches. And some of them are a bit older, might even be older than me, that, just had kids at a later years, so just effectively allowing them to know that, they're not alone, and no coach should ever feel alone, in that realm, so.
Yeah, no, that's good. And like you said, a lot of the times it is you're doing it because you're the slowest one to step backwards, or you've got kids in the and there's plenty of coaches out there that just take it up because they want to help out their kids, and all of a sudden they realise that I don't actually know what's going on. Yeah,
I'd like to think that at some point there was an ability, you might have seen some of these pamphlets or whatever, now you've just got pregnant or whatever. Like it'd be great to develop, so now you're a mum and dad rugby coach, and give them a pamphlet, go online. Here's a couple of starter resources and what have you. I thought, it's something still in my mind. I wouldn't mind actually probably trying to produce one stage, mass produce it for the country. But going back to your original question, I've gone around in circles a bit, but I always felt as a young coach that I was always supported, and I always had people around me to help. So, it was kind of never an imposition, and I'd like to think and hope that, no one really is ever put in the deep end. So yeah, I've been really lucky, and being able to have sounding boards of people around me that on a coaching stance, and people that I know throughout the game, and people that I used to play against that are now coaches as well. And we always, the beauty of Facebook is you can have a bit of a wisecrack with them and whatever, and it's that rugby community that's always around us, and we feel good within it.
Yeah, and that pamphlet, that sounds like a really good idea, and it'd be good to have in there the that feeling that you're overwhelmed. Guess what? So has every other coach that has done this job. Feeling that you don't know what's going to happen next. Because I think that's what happens to a lot of the young coaches, especially in that first year. They just get so overwhelmed, and they think, oh, I'm not going to go and ask that guy because he's going to think I'm an idiot or what. But we've all had it, and we all still get it. Like there's training sessions now I go to, and I just go, I don't know, you just get that little bit anxious, or you like you said, you're trying out a new drill or something, and you just go, oh shit, I don't know if that's going to work. What are these blokes going to think of me? And that's natural. And I think the more we coach, the less we show it, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of young coaches will just go, I thought it's too hard, and they do it, and then they, if they'd have probably stuck it out, or like you said, asked for help from someone, they'd go, yeah, mate, I remember my first time we did that and it looked horrible, or, this happened, or, a bit of reassurance for the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose from an older coach's perspective, the way that we approach younger coaches, and it probably needs to be a way that, we're not telling you how to suck eggs, because we make mistakes on a daily basis, and we're not the best coaches in the world, but if that sort of that level of trust in terms of where the information's coming from, there's different personalities and there's different coaches out there, and they might, this might be, the feeling of their little kingdom, and somebody coming in from the outside really sort of, taking that space, I suppose. But I suppose if there can be sort of a bit of a 360 from some coaches, that there is help out there, and it's always coming from a good place.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that it's coming from a good place. And I had this discussion with one of the other guys on the pod the other week. Was the help's there? They might not come to you, but if you reach out to someone, 98% of the time they're going to go, yeah, mate, come on down, watch a session, or I'll come and help. Like everyone I've reached out to, they've given you, if they've said no, they've gone, oh, because of this, this, and this. And oh, yeah, cool, no problem. Mm. And I think that's where a lot of young coaches, they'll just go, oh, I'm not getting invited to this. I'm not, well, mate, ask, oh, Nick, I just want to talk to you about something. Because you don't want to helicopter it either and just be hovering around all their sessions.
No.
Because then they go, oh shit, why is he always here? He doesn't, blah, blah, blah. So
yeah,
having that ability just to go, mate, can we go for a beer or a coffee or whatever? And I've got a few things I just want to talk to you about,
Yeah.
Because no one's done anything new in the game for 20 years. Like it's all the same stuff, just different, look on it. The coaching is still there. So we've all got those same feelings of, the anxiety and the oh shit, that's not going to work, or geez, that was horrible. And, we've all done it. We all still do it. And just being able to probably have the humility as a young coach just to go, yeah, look, what I'm trying is not working. What can you help me?
Yeah.
And I think we've covered the education versus development part, which was really good. So I'll give you a bit of time to give yourself a plug, mate, for your Longhorn Academy.
I didn't say
no,
mate.
No, go for it, mate. It's all about giving education out there. So there'll be, obviously, we've got a few guys overseas that listen, but there's plenty of people in Australia that are around. So
yeah.
They may want to reach out and get some expertise from you.
So I guess one thing I didn't mention before, but I was a local junior club president for Barrel over a number of years, 5 years, sort of going back about 10 years ago. When I started, our juniors only had 40 players, and within 18 months, due to me on the phone to my development officer or development manager at the time, Sean Barrett, essentially we just put a hell of a lot of resources into the coaches and the club, and we built that to 280 players in 18 months. My goal was to set that, from age 7 through to under 18s, we had a team in every age group, and we did that within the next over the next course of that season. So spending a lot of that time within the Illawarra district, sort of seeing that, Shawnee was run off his feet, the ability for people outside to actually lend some assistance. So that was an initial idea to actually create my academy. So Longhorns Rugby Academy has been running since 2018. We started just doing local programs. Then I was lucky enough to be asked up to Queensland, up to South Toowoomba Ranges, to do an academy up there, just during the school holidays, which was great fun. And I took a couple of coaches with me and spend the weekend up there in Toowoomba. And effectively, no matter where you are in Australia, I mean, generally the clubs and the issues within those clubs are very similar. So, it was good to go up there and just sort of, meet the guys and Stewie Lyon up there and, develop that camp for those couple of days. And we were supposed to go up in these last holidays, unfortunately, but when I got canned from COVID. Locally, we have created a partnership with the Illawarra District Juniors to facilitate academies for local clubs, and just working directly with multiple clubs in this region, doing school holiday plans, developing academies in the off season to help retain, engage players, and sort of build profile for a number of clubs, as well as assisting in sort of primary and high schools for that coaching. I also do a local school up here, a primary school program, who are looking to develop to actually provide a team in a primary schools association next year. So they're a K-12 school. Year 7 to 12 is very highly involved in rugby, and I coach there. But the primary school hasn't had any presence. So during term 2 and term 3, I've been over there with a number of coaches, helping the kids start their rugby journey, and then next year they will actually be able to present a side or 2 sides into an association, which would usually span across New South Wales, sort of out to the Central West, so out to Bathurst and Central Coast and into Sydney as well. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff that I've been doing, over the last season, this season. Yeah.
Yep. Nice. And I'll put all the links to all your stuff. I'll put that in the show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out, but you're on all the socials. Longhorn Rugby Academy, is it on?
Longhorns Rugby Academy.
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone wants to reach out, Nick's a good man. We've had a few chats about developing the game, so feel free to reach out to him. Like I said, I'll put the details in the show notes if anyone wants to touch base with you. Mate, it's been awesome. I think our listeners have got some gold out of what we've talked about today, and hopefully it can inspire some of the new coaches just to keep going and keep getting better as we go through.
Mate, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to have a chat, and at any time, mate, as you know me, you can pick up the phone and talk rugby all day. So
yeah, I know, I'm the same, mate. I get in trouble for it all the time. All right, mate.
All right.
Thanks a lot. All right, mate.
See ya.
See you. So thanks for listening to my chat with Nick Coombs. I hope you took something out of that. I know I did. I got pages of notes. Thanks for your support, guys. Thanks for listening. It's all about sharing the love and the knowledge. So feel free to send this on to anyone that can benefit from it. We've got some really good guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned. Make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button so you get all the updates as they come through. Again, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening, and stay safe.